Already, George, if you look behind me, you can see the Arc de Triomphe, the scene of so much of the violence last week. The Arc de Triomphe there, which is being kept by some of those policemen. And this crowd goes well down the Champs-Elysees. So many of these yellow vests have turned up to protest already. Of course, 320 people already taken in for questioning. As you say, the authorities have made it clear that they intend to do everything that they can to keep this Saturday less violent than it was last Saturday. But already, George, we'd heard from the Interior Minister yesterday saying that they believed that it was likely to be at least as violent as it was.
Melissa, if you could tell us just about the police presence there. I understand thousands of officers there on the streets, and we're looking at this live image right now. Tell us about the lineup there. How many officers, and is there a sense that police are in position, ready for this?
So countrywide, George, the number is 89,000 security forces, that is gendarmes and policemen that have been put out onto the streets of the country, 8,000 in the French capital alone. And more than perhaps the numbers, what we've been hearing from the authorities is that this change of tactic, and that's what we've been witnessing here this morning. They've blocked one end of the Champs-Elysees so the protesters march to the other. They've blocked the other. All of the side streets have been blocked by much more mobile units than we'd seen last week. Last week, you'll remember, the Champs-Elysees was entirely blocked off, so the violence happened all around the perimeter that had been closed down, essentially protecting the presidential palace and a few of Paris's most exclusive neighborhoods. This time, they've more contained the yellow vests that have gathered here so far between the two ends of the Champs-Elysees. Their hope is that they can avoid some of the damage, extensive damage that was caused last week, some of the injuries that they might prevent as well. But of course, it is fairly early here in Paris, and the yellow vests have vowed to come out in full force. As you know, there's been a climb down on the part of the French government on what had been the spark of this protest, the spark of this movement, which had been that hike in the duty on fuel. Climbed down this week, but the yellow vest protesters, now in their fourth week of protest, have said, George, that it is no longer about that. And a number of them we've been speaking here today have said it's much more about the cost of living, and the chant that we've heard over and over is that Macron has to resign.